Oh, good evening. I just wanted to make a quick update. Um, my PS4, I think it's broken. Uh, Now, it once suggested that I could get it repaired, but it's like I enjoy playing it, but it's not, especially with my goals right now. It's probably not worth it. Um, and besides, when I start playing video games again, it'll probably be with the PS5. So I'll just take the leap and go ahead and buy one of those. Hi Omega, you want to join the broadcast? All right, hop on, but don't step on the keyboard, please. Oh, cancel. Yep, still alive. Get your paw out of my stomach. My friend Omega. Yeah, he's been good. Um, we got a little bit of food. It's mostly just pasta and then salads, which he doesn't like. I think he likes the sauce on the pasta though, from Sasso's. It's good. He loves tomato sauce. Um, yeah, so that's something. Not all cats like that. A lot of cats don't particularly like human food. Some really love it though. And Omega's one of them. At least he likes some things. um, yes, and he likes his cat food quite a lot as well. Can you get down? Can you get down? Thank you. I just saw some. I saw a documentary about garbage scavengers in Indonesia. It's very risky because they got the government owned excavators. No, 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 no. Let go, let go. That are basically working with some consideration for them, but the fact that they're actually in such proximity to them means that there's not enough consideration for them by definition. I mean, it works for them. I'm glad they have a way to make some money in an otherwise bleak situation, because apparently they make more from garbage picking and scavenging than they do from farming, or they would from farming. And it's not a lack of willingness to work, as far as I can tell. It's a lack of opportunity. Um, yeah, so they have to um, sell their salvage to a third party, who probably is. Uh, uh, yeah, who probably sells it for a lot more. So I was thinking a good way that a charity might become involved in that is to Omega's rubbing against the computer, and yeah, that's the whisker filled blackouts that you saw. In case you didn't know that. He's so adorable. There we go again. Well, he's got to mark his territory. Whew. Now, occasionally, usually multiple times a week, in fact, we have to clean up after him, marking his territory in other ways. Ooh. It's interesting how they become like jello. When we have, it's a safety thing, I know, but yeah, when holding them with one hand, you got to go a little bit off center of mass because their bodies are a little bit. Um, wow, come here. Yeah, I'll move the mouse here. Nope, over here. Come here. Omega. Come here. Yeah. Rub up against me. Not the not the computer. Yeah. Hmm. Yeah, it's better. Yeah, it's better. Stay off the keyboard, please. I missed you when I went out for a walk. You did. Ay, 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 ay. Ooh. Wow. You're so adorable. Yes, you are. Um. Yeah, some people are scared of cats, but the thing is that yes, some are maladjusted, and it's hard to work with them. Now, I was lucky enough that the two of the cats that I adopted, that me and Max adopted, they were maladjusted to a degree, but it wasn't in a manner of trauma. It was a matter of one of them, Nugget, was basically chased away from the food by the other cats, and maybe by kids. I don't know what exactly the situation was. The description was a little vague. Um, so she was basically way too thin, and hey, leg up. I have to trap you. I think not. uh, she was way too thin, and was incredibly grateful for the food that we had, any company, any attention that was given. She was just, she was, it was very affectionate. She calmed down after several months into her, I think, more innate personality, which was also very affectionate, but not, crawling, trying to crawl under people's skin, so to speak. The other one, Savannah, she was fine health wise as far as we could tell, but she had basically been ignored. And probably treated as an ornament or something, a showpiece. Which is both of these are unfortunate, but it's also how cats are often treated. It's one of the two major ways cats are abused. There's passive abuse and there's overt abuse. Overt abuse is um, hitting them, generally speaking, depriving them purposely of water and food, leaving them out in the elements, um, expecting them to act like dogs, broadly speaking. Some people, they don't think there's much of a difference. At least I think that's what they think. I'm judging by the way they behave. Um, well, I could disagree more strongly, and so could a lot of the majority of pet experts, of which I informally consider myself one, by the way. I don't have certifications, but that's mostly about college degrees and classes and certifications. Um, he's staring. I wonder what he sees. Do you wish you had color vision? Did you find it overwhelming? I think you might. Stay off the keyboard. When these guys get uplifted, I want to know a lot more about what they think about how non-uplifted cats are treated, and I want them to take the lead if that happens. Because guess what? They're the closest link that house cats have to us, or they will be. And I'm sure that they will adopt house cats as well. It's kind of like how we adopt, sort of like how we adopt certain monkeys. There's no direct link, but we're indirectly linked. So basically, we're branched at a certain point, and they went one way and we went another, and merged a little bit with some other. There's a few groups of there's a few hominoid species that intermingled. So that's what made us modern humans. Anyways, that's something that I want to see happen. I want to say in my lifetime, but the thing is, maybe we'll live forever. Maybe some of us will live forever. Now, the millennials and certainly earlier generations, I think that to be a hope. We have to have much clearer scientific progress. I think we have to make sure that it's true science and not politically influenced, other than the element. It needs to be non-politically influenced as insofar as that can be. So the results, certainly. The process should be autonomous. The direction, yeah, that's going to be directed by politics a little bit, be it office politics, company politics, or external. However, our species, it would benefit our species the most, I think, if we were able to engineer ourselves. Now, the first basic thing. Okay, broadly, I think the effort broadly has to be health, but guess what? Longevity equals health. Yeah, there's some genetic disorders that wouldn't necessarily be addressed that way. But I think that it's very probable that some of them would be cured just by having us be longer lived. And then obviously we can work on more puzzling things, like if you got a top scientist or even just someone who's within spitting distance, let's say, someone who can do someone who can advance at least one field substantially within their lifetime. Well, you got them with the body of a 20-year-old. That's usually when scientists do most of their best work, or most of their beginning. That's when they make the most progress in their career in pushing the boundaries of science, and then they spend decades working on what they were working on in their 20s and 30s. At least, that's what I've been told. That's what I've read. Uh, so that's kind of yeah. I think a lot more can be done. If nothing else, even if people retain the facilities and they improve their ability to do great work, the body is still will slow you down somewhat because there's aches and pains and probably a greater propensity for getting sick and and so on as one gets older. It's interesting though. I've been looking into this quite a bit. Um, it seems that the basic thing that keeps us young, obviously it's engagement with life, but also being in shape, like the not necessarily body sculpting, but um, just a very strong core, cardiovascular health, and just it's essentially being active. Also, the repercussions of being active have other benefits as well, including being more social, possibly. But that's what staying engaged with life keeps us young, but exercise keeps us youthful. If you do both, it keeps us youthful. That's as far as I can determine, and that applies very much to real life because I've seen both. I've seen old people um, active and engaged in life, and they're still vital human beings. People might, if they're going by what they were writing about or speaking about, maybe, and just had the text and they didn't hear their voice, they might think, "Oh, this person's 20 years younger," you know, something like that. Maybe more. Who knows? And then, unfortunately, I've seen a lot of older people who are um, very sedentary and or very isolated, and that ages them and atrophies everything, and it's heartbreaking to see. Um, you know, with age with age can come wisdom, but it's not automatic. And actually, it's experience combined with some time to reflect, essentially. Hopefully, talk to other humans too, collaborate. But usually, it's experience that brings wisdom. And sometimes you learn the hard way. Sometimes you find some shortcuts or partial shortcuts. Sometimes you learn just by being empathic and learning from other humans. Yeah. We come in all shapes and sizes. Whew. I'm going to check my schedule tomorrow at work and see if I'm on it. And then, yeah, I really hope I am. Hmm. 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 Hey. um. Oh yeah. So with all that I've been speaking of, this isn't just a good thing to do for its own sake. It's going to change the nature. Well, I don't think it'll change the nature. I think it'll change the mass realization of our nature. So, um, philosophy will be a more active thing in people's lives because we'll live longer. We won't be bounded by a fairly predetermined time of death that we can calculate usually within. Actually, it's hard to say, but usually within decades. But it's becoming more and more imprecise as time goes on, which I'm sort of glad for. I'd rather people have I'd rather people have, let's say, 120 years where, except for some of the body and not working as well, they're 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 engaged in life and happy and productive and all of that, rather than have someone, um, I don't know, retire in their 60s and then just sort of become more and more miserable and yet stay around and I don't know, but they're not happy. You know, I would much rather people be lively and happy, and maybe share some of their perspective, especially as they get older and they're willing to and able to communicate well and yeah, I love hearing what centurions have to say. Um, I only have videos right now, but it's good. They have a lot of perspective, and yeah, it's something that unfortunately some people really lack that, and some young people especially um, they rely too much on the intellect and they don't value the other parts of themselves as much. Rather, they don't realize that it's part of the whole. The intellect itself is cold and impersonal, or at least impersonal. There's nothing really attached to it. There's no moral value to it. That's why I say to people, the intellect only indicates potential, and some people they kind of just they're cold and intelligent and they go through life that way, but um, a lot of times they may have small pond syndrome. They want to feel special, so they find a group, they find a setting that makes them feel special, but it's actually a small pond compared to their. If they really challenge themselves, they could be more amongst peers instead of lording it over people who don't have as much ability or don't have as much ambition, let's say, or something like that. I don't really attach a moral value to lack of ambition. Maybe a complete lack of ambition, but yeah, that's not definitive either because some people honestly don't want anything else out of life. They're exactly where they want to be. It's rare, but it happens. So I don't, you think of the fictional example of Mycroft Holmes. He got to where he wanted to be, which was essentially he, well, certain individuals in the government realized his potential, or he was introduced to them at least, and they realized his potential and the role he could actually play. And then he performed a vital service for the government. It was informal, but certain people knew who he was and what he did, and it was invaluable. And generally, he helped improve. Well, he helped improve the government, I think. It's interesting. There's a lot of speculation about it. I think the BBC show tackled that pretty well. Now, it wasn't like the books exactly, but he was part of the high government. He had a lot of influence and a lot of direct control over certain things, but um, it was made very clear that he didn't have unilateral authority over anything he wanted. He had to be careful. Um, his social connections had to be maintained. He had to be careful with the royals. He had to look after them um, when needed, and he had other people who would counter him and he could counter them. I think it was something like a triumvirate type thing, and that was the covert side of the British government, as far as I could tell. It's interesting. So people find their niche. It doesn't necessarily have to look like that, but people find their niche and they tend to stick to it. And then if they're successful, they can also foster hobbies. Now that is really good, I think, to foster hobbies because it implies someone's at a place in life where things aren't so hectic. Anyways, what else did I see today? I saw a documentary about brick makers in Pakistan. It's horrifying, basically. Um, you could do a lot better for everyone and make them more productive if you treated them better. Which is, yeah, that's putting it mildly. Um, but what I think is going on is that the higher caste people own the mines, or own everything, and they despise the lower caste, or at least they think of them as cheap labor, I think. Um, and they don't really have written contracts, at least the brick makers didn't. So any debt was just yeah, you got to trust the debt holder, and yeah, basically slavery. Um, it's not enough to fight slavery, because it goes in a lot of different areas, and people don't necessarily appreciate um, where those areas are and what degree they themselves are slaves. But society, um, in general, here in America, and as far as I can tell, pretty much everywhere else, gives the message consistently: your life is not your own, and they punish you if you act differently, severely punish you in ways that are so inhumane and degrading that it's almost indescribable. Um, that's I think that's the horror. Well, it's a horrible realization, let's say. When people realize that and other essential nature of reality things, if you will, or nature of society, um, you got to push. First of all, explaining it to someone doesn't matter. They have to realize it for themselves. And then they go through the emotional process. You can prepare for it to some degree, but yeah, um, it doesn't necessarily take a long time, but it's there. You have to realize certain things are true and certain things perhaps are illusions. Actually, there's a lot of illusions. That's the main thing that confuses people. There are so many illusions in society, any society. People believe things that simply not just aren't true, but are actively destructive to believe in some cases. Um, but it's like I say, ignorance is its own reward, but it's also very much a matter of degrees, and we all have some. So it's not like people should just perfection is not the objective at all, although ignorance is always the great enemy. This paradox needs to be sort of wrestled with, but it's not something to be solved, it's something to be experienced. Perfection is inhuman. People don't understand that really, but as you learn more about life, you find it's not. It might apply to some narrow parameters, but in general, perfection is not good. Humans are not cookie cutter. We don't want anything like that. It's unspeakably ugly to someone like me. Um, when I hear people give responses that are basically pre-recorded, it, it's unspeakably just hideous to me. Not always, but if they're um, okay, if there's no thought behind it, they're just regurgitating something. It's like it's just boring. I don't even really remember what they say after I've listened to what they. It's like okay, somebody just forget more or less, or it just happens basically. um, if no thought has been put into it. Now, if it's something that they believe, okay, maybe I'll consider it a little bit more. Um, it still might not be a good idea to repeat something. Um, it's good to well, you see that's the line because that's where stories come in. You repeat stories more than once. So you gotta draw that line for yourself somewhere. Um, yeah, but thoughtless repetition of something, specifically if it's like what some talking head on TV said about something or another, like touching on politics. If that's the case, then and they're just regurgitating what they've seen. It's like, okay, well, I can switch on to CNN or Fox or Sky News or wherever else, and that's exactly what you just said. Just came out of their mouth. Really, like it's not really interesting. So why say it? Anyways, that's my thing. That's my thought process, or my reaction rather. Um, what else? Um, so the nature of reality. Um, our senses, our senses inform us consistently of what's going on and what isn't. So if we deceive ourselves, our senses are deceived because they're part of us. If we pursue um, if we pursue truth and are honest with ourselves, relentlessly honest, that's where you can get a lot of progress because you can deprogram yourself. And yes, talking with other people helps, but it's actually a very personal process and very individualistic. Um, yes, you can gradually and over time reprogram yourself to see things as they are. And then your individual perspective can inform the choices you make. So that increasing over time, you're not beholden to someone else or some other group or whatever. You make the choices. And yes, you can give allegiance to a group, but it won't be blind anymore. That's how to deprogram yourself. Sometimes you need some. Most people need more help from other people. Some people need less, and you got to find where on the spectrum you are if you want to be free from cultural and other conditioning. Now, free doesn't mean immune from, because you have individuality. You got the way you were raised, for example. Um, but you gotta be able to parse all of that. You gotta be able to say, well, this wasn't such a great idea, and here's why. And you gradually deprogram yourself and find the good in things, but you leave the bad habits behind. And again, this is a gradual process. This isn't something. This Epiphanies are good, but epiphanies aren't all. They're like a breakthrough. You got to do. There's a lot of follow through work and a lot of other things that need to go in. It's not The epiphany isn't the achievement. Epiphany is just you. It's like a door opening, and you can walk through and see something else. You have a new perspective to some degree. Um, because you have new realizations about something or another. Anyways, that's whew, I guess I went over. But yeah, I like talking sometimes about different things, and I tend to branch off into other areas, and yeah. Omega is loafing. I'm in a narcissistic survivors group, as they call it. Um, it's I think that's accurate, because uh, that particular type of toxic people, uh, well, it's very persistent, and it's very hard to diagnose and very hard to live with because their behavior is not consistent. Um, yeah, the ability to self delude themselves is quite strong. So, anyways, that's something that's pretty interesting. Um, it's hard. It's hard to give people guidance, like more specific guidance, other than avoid toxic people of all varieties. Yes, but don't yes, but me. Avoid toxic people of all varieties. If you have to tolerate them at like a family function, let's say, there's strategies to do that, but it's really important to avoid them and eliminate them from your life as much as you can. Because toxic is not a euphemism. It literally causes trauma. And it will drive you mad trying to figure out why a toxic person is the way they are. And please, for the love of sanity, don't go to them for closure. They will confuse you. I tell people that. And any toxic person is going to confuse you to some degree, but narcissists are notorious for it. I tell them it's not. Um, I mean, they're going to say things like they're trying to explain how their thought process works, or my brain's unique, pretty unique, or they'll get 1,000 different excuses. What it is they don't have an identity, and so the identity they've created is one they've morphed into for you, because in all likelihood, because they've tried to make themselves as you want them to be at the beginning, and then they can keep it up, of course, because their self-esteem is so inconsistent and based on external factors, especially attention. So that's where they start slipping, and you know, they'll pick out one thing about you that they don't like, or and you try to fix it, but and it's okay maybe, but there's something else and something else, and then the demon starts emerging. They start getting increasingly upset and angry and rageful and demonic. That's because there's no center. So it's just raw emotion, rawest emotion you've ever seen. It's kind of like a child, in fact. And I don't mean that in any way to demean children, but the rawness of it, the unrefinedness, because they don't have an identity. So there's no filters, no anything. It's a tantrum, but it's worse than a child because they're in adult bodies. So, and that confuses people. It's like, how could they be this way? But they were so good before. They were so this. They're acting. They probably believed it themselves, by the way, but they're acting because they're always acting because they don't have an identity of their own. They have a persona that they created that's going to be dropped when they're enraged, and then they'll morph into someone else, essentially, the next victim, probably with some things they learned from the previous victim. It's weird. It's different with covert. Coverts usually stick to someone like a barnacle, their spouse. but they're a whole nother bundle of misery. Um, yeah. And then there's other pathological people, psychopaths, for example, Machiavellianists, sadists. Um, they're very very destructive to a degree that people just don't understand, and they, they, they tend to say they tend to think, oh well, they're fun and exciting. Well, maybe, but they're also very dangerous, and you don't want to get into a relationship with one of them because they'll fly off the handle and hurt somebody and not regret it. Speaking of sociopaths, uh, and I go down the list, but yeah, it's not good, not good at all. You know, I think I've interacted with Machiavellian people before. I'm not sure they were aware that I knew, or suspected at least. I'm pretty sure I'm right. A lot of times people don't really understand, uh, like maybe they go by my paperwork, or maybe I have an awkward social manner sometimes. So they might go on that, and they might think, "Oh well, he's not smart." Well, smarter than you probably. No, it's okay. I understand that people choose the path of least resistance sometimes. And I used to get irritated about it when I was younger, and it does sting sometimes. But it's like, oh, you're making the same mistake that so many have made before. uh, I expected better from you. I don't say that, but the disappointment is subtext mostly. Um, of course, the people I really want in my life, they mostly end up getting into my life, so it's good. The others, they don't see through things as well. They tend to just fade away because, again, they choose the path of least resistance. Yeah. Anyways, that's what I've noticed um, throughout my existence. Hmm. I wonder how Omega will be with the with kittens. Yeah, you Omega. I'm talking about you. Are you use Bernie? Are you use Bernie? Yeah, I wonder, but we shall see. Ooh, I went to Sasso's earlier. Really good meal as usual. I have the leftovers here that I've had to kind of get Omega away from. It's just yeah, it's just some pasta and salad, but I don't know. Oh. All right. Well, good night, everyone. I am Omega.